Hey, this is Pete Saronis of Dots and Bridges, and welcome to our Thought Leadership Consortium. The public and private sectors share a symbiotic relationship, one that requires a good bit of competence, humility, and integrity in order to foster trust. However, well-intentioned efforts to collaborate across government industry tend to focus on a buy-sell paradigm versus a seeker-solver opportunity. Our conversations hope to dispel a few myths, share some enlightening insights, and address technology's societal impact. My guest today is Mr. Harrison Smith, who is the co-director for Enterprise Digitalization and Case Management at the Internal Revenue Service. Harrison, thanks for joining.
Pete, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this. This will be fun.
Awesome. And we're really excited to learn a little bit about your journey into the federal government, where you've served, what you're doing today, obviously, and if you can ideally share some insights on, in a time of transition and dealing with COVID, a little bit about the agency and your journey, your walkabout, as I like to call it, having served for a number of years myself. Maybe share some of those perspectives of the IRS is a heck of a lot more than just that agency that deals with taxes.
Absolutely.
So cool. Well, listen, Harrison, I look at your bio and I see just this journey through government time, obviously now at the IRS, and prior life, you've worked at the Department of Homeland Security. You've worked at the Treasury Department proper, which is the parent entity of IRS. And of course, back to some time with NAVC. And for those of you watching, Harrison's an American University Eagle, a George Washington University Colonel, and he's a bit of that Harvard Crimson with his executive certification, public leadership. He's a badass. But Harrison, talk to us, what brought you to government? What's it been like? And, what you're really excited about in terms of serving our country's government.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. I mean, it was funny when you noted some of my my academic background. I was a policy geek, right? I was ready to go State Department. I did my master's in U.S. foreign policy with super geek, right? Here we go, super geek. And my master's thesis was on the 1972 Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty and the effects of U.S. ballistic missile defense. So that's the kind of thing that I went to school for. So for a pretty long time, after people said, like, what got you into the government? I would say, I have no idea. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing here. But I'll tell you, after being in different places and doing different things, I think really what's so appealing to me is you've got this mission, whether or not you're at the Naval Sea Systems Command, whether or not you're CNO executive panel, whether or not you're IRS, whether or not you're DHS, there is an inherent goodness in the mission, right? Inherent goodness in the mission. And there are these systems, right? There are systems that we have. There's systems of people. There's systems of resources. There's systems of processes and paper and digital exchanges and in-person exchanges. And ultimately, there are times when they don't work as they should, right? They don't work as they are intended to, right? Sometimes they work exactly as they should and don't work as they are intended to. So I came to it after a while where I said, ultimately what really gets me going, like what I really get excited about, is the opportunity to help the systems function in the manner in which they were intended. Help the systems function in a way that they help the people as opposed to get in their way. And ultimately, like, there are reasons why the government does things the way it does them, right? There are reasons that we pursue things or can't pursue things. But there's just this unheralded opportunity to wake up in the morning or in the middle of the night and be like, oh my goodness, we can help with that. That's what we're here to do, is to help with that. And I get unreasonably excited at times about stuff like procurement or about stuff like digitalization, because to me, it helps the system function the way it's supposed to. It helps the system function and support the people it's supposed to support, as opposed to get in their way. And I mean, you can already hear it coming out of me, right? I get really excited about this stuff because there's just so many opportunity, and it's such a good thing. There's so many ways to do the right thing in support of the right people. And that's, that may be cheesy, but that's what gets me going.
No, I love it. And it resonates with me, Harrison. And that time, I always like to say that until you've walked in the shoes, it's not like we do government for that crazy big salary. It becomes a part of your passion, and especially serving inside the Beltway. I mean, this is the largest employer in the area. It's the largest purchaser of IT in the world. It's just very dynamic. So that is your passion's infectious for sure, my friend. Hey, so let me just ask the question, right? This role you're in now, understanding that your entire journey, and we'll talk a little bit about a couple of those other stops, because you're what influenced you, or some of those mentors, the coaching that's happened is a big part of what we like to draw out of you as a thought leader on the show. But the enterprise digitalization and case management office, in the realm of IRS, why was it created ultimately?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, to be honest, IRS has been trying to work on case management for some time. It's got multiple systems, right? It's got multiple. I mean, back in the day, it used to be that there were different geographical locations and different geographical CIOs and procurement folks, and so we had different systems. And we got to a point where, like many bureaucracies, we had multiple systems, a lot of them bespoke and customized for very specific use, that couldn't talk to one another. So, I mean, more than 60 processes, more than 60 applications of case management, more than 250 business processes across those things. And they didn't take the opportunity to interface and engage with their information across the silos, right? So if you've got somebody who's calling on a particular issue as a taxpayer, and they're saying, "Hey, I've got an issue with the refund, and well, you don't have a refund yet. You should have gotten it at XYZ time. Well, here's my identity, and this is why I didn't get it. Oh, you need to talk to another person," right? I mean, this is things that large sales organizations and customer relationship organizations get into all the time. And so case management, and this is an example of what gets me going, right? Case management, we didn't always have the opportunity. We didn't always see the opportunity to say, you know what, let me try it out first. Let me test that thing before I buy it. Let me ask the customer. And ultimately, the customer here is the IRS person, who's picking up the phone, right, and using these systems, because it's well-known empirical fact now at this point. Hopefully, it's well-known. It's definitely empirical fact. The happier the team is, the happier the business employee is. When they engage with the customer, the better that engagement goes. The more positive that is, the more the customer, the taxpayer, gets out of it. And so when you set up these systems, right, that are ultimately designed to engage with the customer, the taxpayer, you have to see the IRS team as the customer as well. So you say, "Hey, I wanted you to try this out." And folks would say, "Well, we can't do that." I said, why can't we do that? Let's find a way to do that. And so we found out a way to test things before we actually used them and deployed them en masse, which is frankly a problem that the federal government and a lot of bureaucracies have, right? We plan for 3 years or 5 years. Really smart people, really driven people get in an area and getting really smart. And then we procure it for, pick it 1 to 3 years, right? And sometimes we get protests, right? And then we deploy it for 1 to 3 years. And then we sit back 10 years later and we're like, how did this not go according to plan, right? I mean, we're surprised. And it's not to belittle or to diminish what folks have done, because there's a lot that's been accomplished within that structure. But when you say, let me try a little piece here, and I want to ask you, user, how it does for you, what do you want it to do? How can we look at the business process too, that came out of this tool that you used to use that we're not sort of shackled by anymore? That's the kind of stuff that's exciting, because I said, we can try it out before we deploy it. Yeah, we can do that. And not only can we do that, we need to do that, and we should do that. So that was case management, right? And then when talking about case management, they said, well, let's talk about the different sets of paper that come in. And the folks in the case management office that existed for about 2 years, they started getting really into it. Here's the amount of paper that comes in. Here's the number of forms, 1,428. There's all this stuff that we work with. We want to make sure that taxpayers can file information in the ways that they find the most convenient within reason, right? We got to make sure that somebody who's in the Beltway can do things electronically, and somebody who's not, who has limited English proficiency, has different ways to do things. So we strike that balance and said, ultimately, at the end of the day, this is a huge opportunity, right? Some people would say it's a huge problem. I say it's a huge opportunity to find ways to take not only the paper that we manage and deal with, right? And that's the digitization. We were joking about the digitalization, right? So we look at it from digitization to digital transformation. And digitization is just like the paper, right? How do I move things around? Frankly, we ship pieces of paper across the country at times because we have to for different reasons. And so let's talk about how do I manage that better from a transport and storage standpoint. That's digitization. Now, digitalization is the machine readable data, right? This is valuing our data. This is really understanding the insights that it can give us and how we can do our work better and answer more questions to the taxpayer, right? And it's still around the data and the information that comes in. But ultimately gets us into, frankly, the really cool stuff, which is the digital transformation, which frequently has very, very little to do with paper. If I engage with, let's say hypothetically, let's do a chatbot or augmented reality with forms or on-demand translation, right? This isn't something that generates a piece of paper. This is something that supports the taxpayer and frankly makes it easier for them to do what you want them to do, which is voluntary compliance, right? If we bump up voluntary compliance like 1%, it results in billions of dollars of additional money coming into the Internal Revenue Service to fund the systems of government.
So Harrison, you're hitting on a few things, which I love it. I mean, you are, boy, I'll tell you, you're a lot like me, man. I mean, I love hearing you talk. Like, I just want to sit here and talk at the same time, jump in and wow, just that was amazing. And you talked and used words like integration, 60 apps, 250 business applications. If I'm out there in industry thinking, boy, that's a mission I can help support. One of the things I profess is do your homework and make sure that you know what the mission of, in this case, Harrison is. It's not the mission of the IRS. Folks, the mission by definition of the IRS is providing America's taxpayers top quality service by helping them understand and meet their tax responsibilities and enforce the law with integrity and fairness to all. That's the mission. But as we're listening to Harrison speak, if you're a technology solution provider, if you're an integrator, if you're an entrepreneur, his mission within the IRS is unique and it requires and depends on technology. Couple bits and bytes and riff off some of this if you want, Harrison, that I gathered online. $12.039 billion is the Internal Revenue Service fiscal year 21 budget. How much of that is IT? I don't know at the moment. I don't care. I just know that's a lot of money. Last year, 2.86 billion, or should I say in fiscal year 2019, was spent to operate its current IT infrastructure. And you nailed this. You said that it's in a constant state of evolution, investing in technology to improve workplace, leverage data, transform IT. I think that was something that was just not only evident in what you said, but important for those to understand. And I love the idea of voice of the customer. You talked about test driving, pilot projects, your office alone, new or if it's been around for a while, I applaud you for embracing the collaborative partnership and understand that simpatico with industry. So maybe now that we have a little bit of a background on the office, please inject a little bit of your, as you've evolved. I'm not calling you an old man here, pal, but you've been around the block and you've grown up in procurement. How have you seen the procurement community evolve into one that needs technology, but can actually drive some of the IRS's technology investment strategy?
Yeah, I mean, those are great points and a great question, Pete, because I think there are 2 points here. And I think the first one is a cultural conversation. Procurement is at times, and I think especially in times past, been viewed as the reason that somebody can't do something, right? We can't, it takes too long. I can't get the right partner. And I'll get to the point about industry partners in a second, because you mentioned something, simpatico, partnership, know my mission, right? That's really important. You got to be, there's a trust aspect, there's an interest aspect of this relationship, right? But the point that I want to make here is you've got that aspect of procurement being now not a roadblock or a hurdle, but what I like to call is a trampoline. Bring a problem. There are now enough instances. I mean, Air Force has got them. You've got SOCOM with their efforts. You've got the Procurement Innovation Lab at DHS. You got the Procurement Innovation Branch at IRS. You got 18F. You got all these areas where it's literally used to accelerate the issues. And now we're in a position where we say, not always, right? But at times, hey, this is a great project. I don't know exactly what I need right now, nor do I know exactly where I'm going to be in 3 to 6 to 9 months, but I know what I'm trying to accomplish. This is what I'm trying, and this is the hard work, right? What am I trying to get to? A lot of people can tell you, here's a list of the 75 thou shalt statements on what you should do. It's a lot harder to say, I want to, and I'll use a specific example in terms of procurement and innovation and digitalization. There's a system that I'm sure you obviously know, Pete, and some of the folks who listen will know, Federal Procurement Data System Next Generation. That's the source info for all the contract obligation data for the federal government. It feeds things like usaspending.gov, right? And a lot of the bespoke entities that offer market intelligence services to folks who want to contract with the federal government, right? A little bit of a sneak alert here. It's doesn't always have the best data, right? And so some people say, well, this is your job. And I'll say, yeah, as procurement folks, it's your job. But think about it. If I'm going to process 10 to 12,000 transactions a year, and there are 54 fields for each one of those transactions that go into FPDS&G, and that's just the procurement fields. And you want me to do, I was working with Shanna Weber's today. She shared some info with me. I think it was 34% of my work in the fourth quarter, in the month of September, I beg your pardon. You want me to be able to do all that and have great data? You got to be careful with that, right? You got to understand the natures and the inconsistencies of that. But if the procurement office says, you know what, I want to be able to improve my data in FPDS-NG. I want to be able to do that. I want to limit manual work, and I want you to do it in 90 days. I'll tell you, a lot of people would laugh. And I'll say, it's amazing what you can do with the team at the IRS and the industry partners that support it, because they took a handful of industry partners, that took that challenge and rolled out multiple active RPA tools, bot tools in a federal government system that resulted in 178% ROI. And they didn't quite make 90 days. It was 97 days. Wow. And I'll take it on that because that was my fault. But 97 days versus 90 days, I'll take that all day long. And the conversation that we had internally was like, just, can we do it again? Can we do it again? That's awesome. And here's the last part, the quick part that I want to note on this, Pete, is that folks will say, wow, how long did that take you to run that procurement? From data solicitation release, right? Date that we asked for proposals to the date that it was awarded was 27 calendar days.
Wow. I mean, that's not the traditional 18-month lead time to get a procurement through.
No. And I mean, sometimes you got to do it that right. I mean, like, you go back to my days at the Navy, there's not even a handful, right? There's like one or two people who can do a nuclear submarine conversion, right, on the Virginia class. There's one or two people who can engage with refueling and complex overhaul of an aircraft carrier, right? But there are things like case management. There are things like robotic process automation. There are things like high-speed scanning, OCR and data capture from low-resolution images. These are the things where, if we're targeted, right, and we can find out those areas where we can push the envelope, that's where we can do things in those types of cadences, right? We've got the things that are going to take longer, right? Rome wasn't built in a day. I got it. Neither was a space shuttle. That's okay. But we're talking about technology areas and the ways to look at things differently, right? Because it's not just technology, right? It's business process, it's policy, and it's culture.
I love it. And I'm going to give a shout out, or try to, and what I love to do, and call me out if I'm wrong, H, but here's the deal. I found in your strategic plan, which is, I believe, dated fiscal year or calendar year, fiscal year 2018 to 22. It's online, folks. Go read it. It has a nice overview. It's well written and articulated. And there are these 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 goals, we'll call it, and then key objectives. If you want to know about the IRS mission, boy, you have a lot of different missions to speak to. And obviously, Harrison, you've been laying some of it out. But what caught me was the vision. We will uphold the integrity of our nation's tax system and prepare the public trust through our talented workforce. You mentioned culture and people. Innovative technology, clearly making those investments, and collaborative partnerships. Key word, and you mentioned, I appreciated how important trust is. I just want to say, too, that if I can make life easier on folks and distill down some specific operational activity, Harrison, feel free to add in tax processing, integrated case management, anomaly detection, research analytics and behavioral insights, migration to cloud, automate repetitive process, cybersecurity, and stabilizing IT operations. I guess, Harrison, I mentioned that because while you've said it, it's still, if anyone watching this might be wondering, what should I talk to him about? And I feel like it's great when I can provide the opportunity for folks like yourself, seats I used to sit in, which is, we know technology is not the problem. Come help us, be a partner. Don't just look at this as a paycheck. What can you comment on about the importance of that trusted partnership that is so needed?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head. You said partner, right? And there's a reason why, and every once in a while I'll slip personally, but I try to consistently emphasize the term industry partner,
Mm,
right? And some people will say, oh, Harrison's just being nice to people. No, I mean, this is a fundamental thing that we do. I mean, at the end of the day, the federal government is neither authorized nor appropriated to perform all the work itself. Full stop. Full stop. We just don't get the money that way. We don't have the authorization to do it that way. And so it's so wildly important to talk to people, right? To acknowledge, frankly, I don't know how we're going to fix this problem. This problem I know how we're going to fix, and this is what I need. But this one, I don't know. And I don't have to be the expert in this particular area. Other experts, other ways I will be the expert, but I need help, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what a solicitation is, right? It's a solicit. I need to get help. I need support. I need assistance. And yes, money is part of that. But I mean, it happened today, Pete. I had a conversation with somebody, and I try to meet with industry as much as is feasible, not as much as I can, but as much as is feasible. And the number of times every year that I get somebody to come in, or not physically anymore, right, to dial in and say, here's how cool my job is. Here's how cool my stuff is. I'm here, I'm there. What can I do to support you? And you see the passion in these people's voices, and you know that there's a metric somewhere that they're trying to fill and say, I got a meeting with so-and-so at the person's office. And I say internally and sometimes externally, you missed it. You missed it. I need credibility. I need competence. I need trust. I need you to show me why I should work with you.
I
Right?
love it.
Right?
I,
And this is like, just look, you said strategic plan. Yeah. Listen to the dots and bridges, right? Just go down the list of, here's the problem that I think you have. Here's a problem that I think you have, government. IRS, I know there's a lot of tax stuff, right? And this goes into another item that you were talking about. There's a lot of tax collection, audit, this type of stuff. But I also heard that apparently about a year and a half ago, criminal investigation, that's your law enforcement arm, right? That's what I think it is, Harrison and the IRS. That's your law enforcement arm. They worked within a multi-jurisdictional and multi-agency task force to de-anonymize cryptocurrency transactions,
wow.
to identify and shut down the world's largest child pornography ring.
Amazing.
You know what? Even if you don't have all the information, I'm like, one, that's a really cool thing that we're proud of. But two, you looked. Oh, and also I realized that, IRS they've got these big call centers, right? But sometimes when FEMA goes through a natural disaster, the IRS call centers actually pick up that slack. And here's how I want to help you in call centers, because I think that's really important. I think that's a great thing and great work across the federal government. Oh, and I heard about this press release out in Washington where the IRS team tracked down some folks who were, frankly, this is the prank call not prank call, excuse me, the spam call, the con call that we, at least one of us has gotten. I'm with the Department of the Social Security, department or whatever it is. It works, right? It works sometimes. And these folks had stolen $400,000 from elderly citizens who thought that their Social Security number had been compromised. And so when you start talking to me about that stuff, when you connect that mission with what you're good at and how you can help, and frankly, how other people can help, now you got my attention. Now you got my attention. I need that credibility that you're paying attention to me. I need that trust that this means something to you. And this is, I think we talked about it. It's not just a paycheck, right? It's a partnership. And that's absolutely the case.
Wonderful. I'll tell you, I can't wait to get to our questions because I'm going to have to limit you to 2 minutes per, but you've touched on so many and given the answers already. You're amazing. No rush, no rush. Hey, couple things that just spoke to me there, and I'm just going to reiterate. I'm reading a book, The Speed to Trust, The Speed of Trust, Stephen Covey. He addresses this credibility plus competence plus character. That leads to trust. He calls it high trust. And I hope anyone watching this, Harrison is a collaborative. I know personally he's a great guy. Would love to meet with people 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. But the nugget for me was do your homework. Bring me something that I can get excited about as it relates to what your technology can do to support the mission of the IRS, or in this case, digitalization and case management. So awesome job. Okay, before we get into the quick fire questions, though, I do want you to, if you can, share this. You came into government at a school. Yes, you fell into procurement, but What is some of the mentoring? You don't have to mention names, but some things that really stuck with you over the years.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got, one is something that happened at work and something that happened near work that I think is really, hopefully one of them is funny and at least one of them is telling. Um, I got to a point where I was frustrated with the process back at the Navy, and I wanted to change to something, and I wanted to change this form that we had to submit when we were doing procurement stuff. Doesn't really matter what it was, but I went through it and I frankly slapped it together. I didn't do a good job, and I had a boss of mine, Jim Lofgren. Jim Lofgren was the individual's name, who came in and said, "Hey, I see that you're frustrated in this. But I got to tell you, you missed the boat here. And here's how you missed the boat. You didn't ask why we did these things. You assumed.
Mm.
Right? You assumed that you knew better on day one and you didn't ask the questions. You didn't partner with people to find out what was going on. You didn't talk to the experts. You assumed that you were the experts. And frankly, that was a little bit of a kick in the teeth, as it should have been. Right? It was pretty arrogant of me to do that without that work. But it tells me that these things that we do, they may seem odd, they may seem wrong at times, but there's a reason for them. And people worked long and hard to do that. And there's a respect, there's an inherent respect for who does those things, right? And so that's ultimately at the end of the day, where's the expert? And it's the person who's been doing it for a really long time. I think that's hugely important.
Yeah, that's a great story. And number one, it's like the question when you're asked, where are your faults? They ask you sometimes. It's always hard to say, but I always tell stories like you and say, look, I used to assume as a young buck that this was good for my customers. Put an IP phone on their desk. Well, did you ask me if I needed one?
Right.
Wonderful. And again, a lot of this Harrison, I mean, we can talk for hours. It's humanizing the engagement. Obviously, you're in government. There are people who want to sell, you want to buy on behalf of. I just appreciate your crystallizing a lot that it's not a transaction. I call it's seeking and solving, seekers and solvers, not buyers and sellers. So you embracing that coaching and mentoring over the years, like myself, it's invaluable. So thank you for sharing that. All right, we're going to go into. I've got 3 questions for you. We'll try to keep it to about 2 minutes or so, and then I'm going to have a parting shot opportunity, what I like to call maybe a tweetable moment or two. But you've answered some of this. Just leave it with folks so that they feel good should they have the opportunity to meet with you or not you or somebody at the IRS that maybe they have that nugget that they can bite into and go learn something versus being a teller of why a product is so good. First question, buddy. What do you as a leader, and this is all information I hope is in a publicly available sense. I'm not asking you for any trade secrets or any bias. What do you, your company, your business, your leadership hope to accomplish in the next 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, Pete, it comes down pretty quickly to something that we've been talking about within enterprise digitalization for some time. We want to push the envelope and push the envelope hard on a couple of concepts. We want to do what the commissioner talks about, swinging for the fences. And I just had a conversation today with senior leadership, and I said, "Hey, we're pushing the envelope in such a way where we are going to be going, we're going to be swinging for the fences, and we're going to miss. And if we don't miss at least once, and maybe we're able to adjust, but maybe we're not able to adjust." We're going to swing for the fences, and not all of them are going to work. And frankly, if all of them work, then we're not trying hard enough. And that's an area where R&D, we're good at that in the federal government. Not everything has to work, right? But procurement and IT type areas, right? Working with the partnership of Nancy Seeger, the CIO, and Paul Mamo and Eric Marco and that team, they have helped us push the envelope on some concepts. And that's what I'm really looking forward to in the next 30, 60, 90 days, pushing the envelope on a couple ideas. And only one of them has to hit.
Mm-hmm.
One of them has to hit. And we are cooking with gas, as my father likes to say.
I like it. I like it. And shout out to you for mentioning your colleagues who I know it's a team effort. And again, as a procurement guy, you have to do a lot of that cross-pollinating with your agency leaders, and great answer there, pal. Number two, what opportunities does the current technology landscape present to you? I mean, you read stuff. What are you excited about that as you see this world evolve and depend on tech?
Yeah, I mean, if I hadn't already, unfortunately showed my hand and so to speak in this area, a lot of this excites me, right? Stuff is really cool. I think what's so neat in the technology arena is the ability to process information more quickly,
Mm,
right? I mean, you want examples and historical data to inform machine learning or algorithms. I got that. I got that in spades for you. You want the ability to look at historical information, to learn things, and you can process information more quickly and identify those causal factors. We got that for you. That opportunity to learn quickly and to pivot, that's the part that really, really excites me. Whether or not you're talking about traditional sort of agile approaches, whether or not you're talking about randomized control trials, which is something that I think are really important to do, again, to drive evidence-based policymaking and really push that envelope. The ability to process just vast amounts of raw information and identify consistent themes and causal factors. That's what excites me, because then the question is not, well, is this a good idea or not? It's like, clearly, because we've tried it 3 or 4 different ways and been able to process the information, this is what works. So this is where we need to go almost always. Maybe not always, but this is where we need to head. And this is where we need to look at, because this is the return on investment. This is how we make the system fit the person and the organization better.
yeah, I like that. It's a bit of there's a square peg round hole, but there is a hole for that square peg at some point. And I think it's a little bit of what you said earlier. We want to fail fast. We want to engage. We want to pilot. We have to sift through or distill what could be a tool. And if a colleague just told me recently that, hey, I got enough tools in my backyard. I don't need any more. And then I posed a question, but how do you know they're the right tools and do they actually work well together? And he said to me, he goes, that's a good point. We probably buy too much and don't spend the time finding the right tool for the right reason and the right mission. So I don't know, that stuck with me, Harrison. And
Totally.
I think you articulated that really well. Okay. This is the humanizing question that I like to finish with. And again, you've hit on a good bit of it, but please, as a sitting federal employee, um, speak from the heart here. How can industry better prepare itself to support your mission?
Yeah, and this is a fantastic question, right? We talked a little bit about credibility, you talk competence, like those kinds of things, right? And there's a lot of different constructs, but it really comes down to don't talk at me, right? Talk with me,
Mm,
listen, because ultimately we need that partnership, right? We need that ability to say, hey, Harrison, this isn't what the data shows. I know this is what you think, but this is where you want to get to, right? Yeah, okay. Well, this is what the data shows. That partnership is so wildly important. That ability to really be committed to the mission, which I think is pretty easy for a lot of people once they step back and remind themselves. We're in this for the mission, right? We're in this to help the systems get out of the way of the people they're designed to help. So just remember that. And if it wasn't clear, let your enthusiasm and let your passion shine through. Help me fix my problems. Help me fix my problems.
wonderful, wonderful answer. And as I prepare my parting shot, giving you a little bit of time to think of one that maybe, yes, this is the hard ball. How do you synthesize all these nuggets? You really hit on a number of things. And Harrison, as it was an honor to have you on the show. I'm grateful to know you. The government's better off having you in it. And someday when you're not, you'll be able to hopefully, like myself, start to share the perspective. But you really did shape how technology, in the case of IRS, is not just supporting the mission, but the financial sector, the importance of cross communications in your own backyard, which is, herding cats at times, but the leader that you are, a senior executive service member that you are. I appreciate that. We need more Harrison Smiths in this world. So thank you for your service to the IRS, obviously, and to the government and to our country. That's my parting shot. I'm lucky that I have the opportunity to know you. Give me a parting shot, pal.
Hey, Pete, I appreciate it. I think that it's something that a good friend of mine told me before he retired from the federal government and had military service before. He said it's always about the people. It always has been and always will be. And it amazes me every year. I think I fully understand that. I don't. And it's really just humbling and exciting. And I'm really grateful to work with the people that I work with. We have a really small team. They are fantastic. Every day I come to work amazed at what they've been able to do, and just grateful for the opportunity to help things move better. So if I do anything that's decent, it's really about moving things out of their way and supporting them. It really is about the team. It's really humbling.
Well, I feel it. You're obviously a great father, a great husband, 4 kids like me. So I know what's important in life. And boy, oh boy, just hearing you in this context, it made my day, my friend. Listen, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for those of you who watch this and learn from. We hoped we educated a bit, enlightened, informed, and shared a few of those bits, bytes, and insights. So Harrison, I'll talk to you soon, pal.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the time.